and welcome to Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Lake County. I am Susie Lockwood, and I will be your service leader this morning. Our guest speaker today, who has become a familiar face and a dear friend to all of us at UUCLC, we welcome back Reverend David Crump. We'll begin this morning with some announcements, and I'll begin with our usual few to remind you to stay muted unless called upon to speak, and that our service is being recorded, although we do not record in the time of sharing of joys and concerns, nor the discussion period following the service. If you've missed any service, a reminder, you can find us, the services, on our UUCLC YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, in search, type UUCLC office, and there we are. You can always find the links in our weekly bulletin and the communicator. Speaking of the weekly bulletin and communicator, please make sure you check it out and all the activities and group activities that are going on here at UUCLC via Zoom. Again, I suggest you become familiar with the chat box. You may use it to share a joy or concern if your words are too tender to speak. It will then be read to the congregation. You can also use the chat box to make a contribution to UUCLC right now. We will bring you more ways that you can contribute later on in the service. I have a few special announcements. The first one is a request. When our beautiful building is reopened, we will again be able to have some of our favorite services and ceremonies. And some of you might remember one of our favorite ones is the sacred water ceremony. As many of you now are traveling or plan to travel, please don't forget to gather a sample of water from your favorite place, bring it home, and during our water ceremony, you'll be able to pour it into a common bowl. And that symbolizes that many are one. I have one more announcement that I was asked to share after some very, very hard work by some very, very special people. Okay. The communication committee is pleased to announce that we have a new website. The website address, there you go, uulakecounty.org. But if you happen to go to the old website, it will direct you there. And they ask if you have any suggestions or any contents that you would like to add, please contact the committee chair, Christy Malat, or send your comment to us by way of the contact form on the website. We hope you like it, and we all need to give a big, big thanks to the committee and all who worked on it, and a big thanks, I know, to Barbara Merrill. Even though I know she doesn't come on Facebook, we need to recognize her if we ever talk to her. I know she's done a lot of hard work, and the whole committee, I guess. And again, that's uulakecounty.org. Okay, we're back to. Righty. Does anyone else have any announcements this morning? And I'm going to ask my little crew behind the curtain to look for any raised hands. Do we have any more announcements?
Jane Hipting.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jane.
Hi. The Social Justice Committee invites everyone to attend our Keep the Care rally this Thursday at 4:30. More details are in the service bulletin and on our new website. Thank you.
Oh, so that's a reason definitely to check out the new website. Thank you, Jane. Do we have any more announcements, friends? No more?
Susie, can I jump in? I wanted to just second.
Absolutely.
As a member of the communications committee, and knowing how bashful our chairperson is, Christy Malat, I don't know if she's on with us this morning or not. I'm looking quickly. I know Henry's here. Is your wife anywhere to be found, Henry?
She's on. Yes, she is.
I just wanted to say, yes, Barbara Morrow has been incredible pulling the website together, but also Christy as the chairperson of the committee, who helped kind of herd us all as cats, and made sure that we got the contract up and running with our with Naomi, who is our consultant, who assisted us with some of the the WordPress technical stuff, and also getting us connected to the UUA template and using some of the more complex features of that tool, which is available nationally through the UUA in Boston. It's been an amazing process, and we won't go into any of the details here, but for any of you who have worked on a website, I think fully appreciate the level of detail and the tenacity that Barbara particularly has demonstrated in pulling this together. So even if you don't use websites too much, I do implore you to go to the UUA, to our website, which is uulakecounty.org, as Susie has said a couple times already, and check it out, because there's some really nice features there, and you may rediscover your church in ways that you didn't know it existed. So anyway, that's too much talking.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you all on the committee. And also Barbara did request if anybody has any suggestions or ideas. I haven't checked it out yet. I would love to, because you know me, I'll find something. Sorry, people know me, to try to make it better, but I know she was working hard on it. And Christy, thank you. Okay, any more announcements? We'll move on.
I don't see any, Susie.
Thank you very much, Henry. Okay. As many of us come from different backgrounds and beliefs, as a reminder, the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, which many Jewish people spend the following 10 days working to amend their behavior and seeking forgiveness for wrongs during the past year. It also commemorates the creation of the world. Each new year is seen as an opportunity for new creation, new opportunity to fulfill our hopes and dreams of a better world. The following is a prayer by Lynn Cox, a Unitarian. Spirit of life and love, known by many names and yet fully known by none. We give thanks for this time and this place of renewal. We give thanks for the ability to begin again. After the disasters, after the tragedies, after the losses, after meeting the challenge set before us, grant us the courage to continue on this journey, the courage to speak up for the well-being of others, ourselves, and the planet. May we forgive each other when our courage falls short, and may we try again. Grant us hearts to love boldly, to embody our faith and our values in living words and deeds, to let the spirit of love and truth work its transformation upon us and within us. Grant us the spirit of hospitality, the willingness to sustain a fit dwelling place for the holy that resides in all being. Grant us a sense of being at peace in the world, even as we are in motion. Let us cultivate together the strength to welcome every kind of gift and all manner of ways to be on this journey together. To this, we add the silent prayers in our hearts. Again, welcome the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Lake County. We support one another in our search for meaning and spirituality and are guided by our 7 principles. Believing in the inherent worth of every person and being, showing compassion and fairness towards others, accepting others for who and what they are, growing through a supported search for personal truth, applying the democratic process in our churches and in our communities, building a global community founded on peace, liberty, and justice, respecting the interwoven nature of the universe. We are a faith of wholeness, a faith of love. We are all welcome here. I would now like to invite any first-time visitors or those who may have been away for a while to introduce yourselves or to say hello. Just raise your hand and my special people will call on you and ask you to unmute. Do we have any visitors today? And do we have anyone who has been away for a while, even if it's a short while, to say hello? Raise your hand. Do we have anybody?
Susie, Jacob Dowizik, I don't know if I got that right. If you want to unmute, if you want to say anything.
Jacob, are you there?
Still not unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, that's very
We
good.
can hear you.
Hi, my name is Jacob. I live in Tavares, and what brought me here was spiritual awakening.
Welcome, Jacob. I don't know. Our church is closed. We're trying to keep going. Zoom has been able to bring us guest speakers from all over, from even Australia. So please join us, or if you go to our YouTube channel and see some of our other ones, and welcome. I'm glad to see you.
Thank you.
Yes. Any others?
I don't see any others, Susie.
All right. Thank you. If you'd like to receive our weekly bulletin, Jacob, or monthly newsletters, or have someone contact you, and if you have questions about Unitarian or anything, jot a little thing in the chat box and let us know if you'd like to receive anything. No pressure. Thank you. Uh-oh, I need another hand. The lighting of our chalice, a Unitarian. The lighting of the chalice is a moment shared by Unitarian Universalists around the country. It connects us to each other throughout the country and the world. Those of you who have a candle or a chalice, please join me. Let me read it first. By the light of this chalice, we prepare for the future. We prepare ourselves for the times of triumph and the times of trial that might come. We prepare ourselves to be present in one another with loving hearts, even in the most difficult of times. We prepare ourselves to make connections that will lift us out of isolation and prepare the path of justice and equality. We now make time for sharing joys, concerns, or sorrows, or in our intent for the coming days. Again, this part of the service is not recorded. It is time now for our meditation and silent reflection. Amid all the noise in our lives, we take this moment to sit in silence, to give thanks for another day, to give thanks for all those in our lives who have brought us warmth and love, to give thanks for the gift of life. Now, please find a comfortable posture. Take a deep breath in. Let it out slowly. Take a breath in, then out, as we bring ourselves slowly back to this space. let us recite together our congregational covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law.
This is our
Muted.
great covenant.
Muted, please. This is our great covenant, unfortunately. That's a thought, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. That would be nice. We are fortunate to have our UU family support every one of us in order to continue our virtual services, keep our beautiful building protected and ready for our eventual return. We ask for whatever financial support you can provide. There are multiple means to do this, all of which are found here on the screen or in our Sunday bulletin or new UCLC website. You can also donate from the chat box right now. Thank you for your support and your donations today. Enjoy.
How many roads must a man walk down before they call him a man? How many
Good morning. How to follow up on Peter, Paul, and Mary. It's a tough one. My message title this morning is Desabar, a prophecy. The word Desabar is a Portuguese word. The most direct translation to English would be to collapse. But the structure and origin of Desabar carries a more dramatic sense of a radical, even violent unraveling, coming apart at the seams. The image it brings to mind for me is a landslide or avalanche where, before your very eyes, an entire mountainside comes unglued, tumbling away from itself, snow, giant boulders, mud, all crashing down uncontrollably, one over the other, into the abyss. And then the rest of the title, Desabar, a prophecy. Often prophecy is thought of as some kind of divinely given capacities to see into the future. However, my understanding is not that it is some kind of Alice in Wonderland looking glass, but rather the naming with some level of confidence of future events based on careful investigation and attentiveness to real concrete information available to us right now. In this view, I'm reminded of Jesus' words. We read in the Gospel of Matthew that the religious leaders of his day came to him, asking him to show them a sign from heaven. In other words, tell us some unknown secret, show us some magic. But in the view of the late Dr. Marcus Borg, one of my favorite modern interpreters of the Bible, Jesus did not think of himself as divine, as the Son of God. Rather, Borg suggests he was a spirit person who recognized and affirmed the divine spark present in every person, a subversive sage, a social prophet, and a movement leader who invited his followers and hearers into a transforming relationship with spirit and into a community whose social vision was shaped by the core value of compassion. And so rather than respond to some kind of God, Jesus challenges his inquisitors to draw on their own present world knowledge and wisdom. In the evening, you recognize, Jesus says, that tomorrow will be fair if the sky is red. On the other hand, you will announce that today will be stormy if in the morning you see that the sky is red and threatening. So, and here's Jesus' challenge, so you know how to judge the appearance of the sky, but you are blind when it comes to judging the signs of the times. My message this morning, Desabar, a prophecy, is an attempt at reading the signs of our times. It is an attempt to gaze into not only the immediate, but I believe even into the longer-term future that we face, but not as some kind of magic or divine predictive power, but a gazing grounded in and drawing upon what we see and know already today. With this crowd, I know that I don't need to convince you that we are in the midst of multiple overlapping and significant crises. I had originally planned to share a message this morning on homecoming. A few short weeks ago, we thought that we would be back together again in our church building. But then came Delta, and over the last weeks, the country has seen some of the highest numbers of cases yet to appear during this pandemic. And so here we are, once again enjoying each other, but through the now familiar platform of Zoom. But the epidemiologists warn us that in a world that is getting warmer, ever more crowded, where we are connected globally and where the world of humans and animals are converging, we can expect more and more frequent appearances of new and deadly viruses. And so masks may just become a part of everyday dress. We've been hearing the warnings about global warming for more than 50 years, but in just the last few years, we are witnessing that its effects are already upon us. The numbers and violence of hurricanes, what is becoming the annual conflagration due to the wildfires ripping across land, properties, and cities in the West and in parts of Europe, points of unprecedented extreme heat as well as extreme cold reported in various parts around the globe, droughts in some places and flooding in others. predictions that large swaths of Africa will become uninhabitable in the near future, island nations sinking into oblivion in a rising sea, the likelihood that coastal cities around the world will be swamped with ocean waters sooner than expected. We are warned that soon we may reach the tipping point. On a different plane, the growth and support of right-wing, including openly fascist and white supremacist, social, political, and even religious ideologies around the world, something that many of us who lived and grew up in the wake of what happened in Nazi Germany never imagined recurring, and the effectiveness of these movements to organize and their blatancy to, on one hand, spread lies, and on the other, to openly announce their goal of a world that works for a few and is detrimental to the majority. Haiti suffered recently yet another earthquake, followed by yet another storm, resulting in thousands dead and injured. And Hurricane Ida, that just this past week ripped through Louisiana and Mississippi and made its way across this country, creating never-before-seen flooding in New York City. However, the major focus of political framing and news coverage here in the US over the last few weeks has not been on these disasters, but on the withdrawal of US troops and the rapid takeover by the Taliban in Afghanistan. Almost overnight, the central question became, how could this happen? And the answers that began to be offered over and over again were, on one hand, the failure of the Biden administration to manage the withdrawal, and on the other hand, the corruption, incompetence, and lack of commitment on the part of the Afghan government and military. The US and its allies have been in Afghanistan for 20 years, our longest war. And the US alone has spent more than $2 trillion fighting, bombing, training, and nation building there. But the major story we are offered is Biden's bad planning and Afghan incompetence. And sadly, we get drawn into these kinds of short-sighted narratives. As a result, we don't step back to consider the bigger picture. In fact, more perceptive voices tell us that Afghanistan is not a failure, because the real focus and intent, despite the story fed to us over the last 2 decades by those in power from both parties and parroted by the media, was all along not focused on creating a stable nation or building democracy. That's what we're asked to believe. But the truth of the matter is that wars are about the billions of dollars raked in by the military, industrial, media, security state complex. Who is richer because of the war in Afghanistan, and in any war for that matter? That's what this is all about. And from this perspective, the war has been a tremendous success. Just this week, the Watson Institute of International and Public Affairs at Brown University reported that the wars since 9/11, just under 1 million lives have been lost, and the US budgetary cost for these wars stands at $8 trillion. Also this week, the National Priorities Project issued a report stating that the total for a whole range of military and so-called security efforts by the US since 9/11 has cost $21 trillion. This money doesn't go into a black hole. There are those who benefit and make money from wars. If in 2001 you had invested $10,000 in the 5 biggest defense contractors, today your investment would be worth $97,000. My local congressperson, Michael Waltz, has over the last couple of months called on the Biden administration to reverse course and re-engage the war in Afghanistan. He frames his argument in terms of his concern as a father for the girls and women of Afghanistan, and in terms of ensuring the eradication of the terrorist threat. But guess what? Congressman Waltz recently made $26 million from the sale of a defense contracting firm that he managed before becoming a congressman, and that was engaged in the war in Afghanistan. John Maguchi, president and CEO of a military contracting firm, at a recent meeting complained to their investors that the Afghanistan pullout will hurt their company profits. Meanwhile, his company is listed as a corporate sponsor of a think tank that has been opposing the withdrawal. It seems to me, and this is where I do a bit of peering into the future, and in fact, this perspective was affirmed in a conversation I heard this week with Chris Hedges, that the US-Afghanistan debacle is yet another piece of evidence that the empire, the center of the global savage capitalist system, is also coming apart at the seams. It is in the process of Desabar. I would add furthermore that in a more radical view, this can be seen as a good thing. I know that I benefit from living in the richest, most powerful nation in the world. And if that changes, it will certainly affect my style of life that I enjoy as a middle-class person in the US. However, I'm also aware that my benefit and privilege is the reverse side of the same coin that is suffering, oppression, violence, and poverty for the majority of my human sisters and brothers, both here in the US and around the world. The privilege and comfort I enjoy living, even at the margins of this global power, are directly related to the lack, violence, and suffering that characterizes the life of the majority of Haitians, Afghans, and so many others. And for me, as a person of faith and of progressive values, that is not okay. To continue peering into the future, sisters and brothers, I believe that if we are really honest with ourselves, we are in for a lot worse before it begins getting any better. I do not see us slowing global warming soon enough to avoid even greater catastrophic consequences than we are already witnessing. It seems very possible to me that yet in our lifetimes, we will see major human die-offs in various parts of the world. We will see island nations disappear, and we will begin experiencing population shifts as never witnessed before, as millions are forced to migrate to higher ground to escape the submerging of large coastal cities. Sometimes I think that things may reach a point where most of human life on this planet will disappear, except for perhaps a few small scattered populations in some remote corners of the globe who somehow escape and survive to recover the planet and build a new world. I'm not convinced that we are going to be victorious in the social and political battles we face either. If the definition of a democracy is a system in which the power to decide and determine direction is vested in the people, I don't think we live in a democracy today. What shapes and moves our world today is money. And unfortunately, it seems that those with the most money are the ones most bent on shaping and reshaping the world to the benefit and control of the few and to the disregard and demise of the rest of us. As our Democrat president withdraws our nation from Afghanistan, he already announces that the need to engage more deeply in other offensives in order to protect us from the threat of terrorism. Does he miss the absurdity in his suggestion that somehow throwing money now at new offensives is going to be any more successful than $8 trillion or $21 trillion spent in the last 20 years? I mean, really? Using the words from Biden's recent threat to the re-emerged ISIS group in Afghanistan, does it ever occur to our leaders that so-called terrorism is perhaps a voice saying to the United States, we will not forgive, we will not forget, we will hunt you down and make you pay for your wars and your imperial and savage capitalist overreach that has caused so much mayhem, suffering, denial of rights, destruction of democracy, and death around the world. I recognize that it is a dire picture that I paint this morning, but it seems to me that if we are honest in reading the signs of our times, these are the kinds of images that emerge as we attempt to peer into the future. But perhaps, hope against hope, that does not mean that all is lost. We are told that out of the ashes, the phoenix shall arise. I've said this in other messages. One of the things that gives me the greatest hope is the thousands of groups around the world who are determined to build a new and different kind of world. Working locally, these groups are connecting via Zoom with others, building global movements that are envisioning, creating, and putting into practice new ways of being and new ways of doing things around race, gender, access to the land, indigenous rights, human rights, abundance of healthy, affordable food, housing, climate, the list goes on. We may not be able to turn things around in time to avoid greater levels of catastrophes that seem to already be upon us. But I believe that the ideas and systems and practices that are being created provide alternatives, even in the midst of the demise, and they will be needed for rebuilding from the ashes. As someone whose worldview has been deeply shaped by Latin American liberation theology and by the study of Marx and other critical philosophers, something else that I find encouraging is the new sense of possibility for people to explore and openly discuss alternative political, social, and even religious spiritual options. While communist and socialist are still used as pejoratives, for someone like me, it is refreshing and hopeful to hear politicians, journalists, professors, and young people, especially young people, openly espouse socialism and express what that means to them over against the system we currently live in. And while we may not all warm up to socialism, in a broader sense, I find it hopeful to hear people exploring other creative ideas about how to reimagine and build a society that prioritizes people and community and the commons rather than profits and the GDP. So my challenge to us this morning is to consider where and how we plug into actions or movements that open a way forward, to provide the possibility of hope, even if the image we see peering into the future is at the far end of the tunnel. I close this morning with words by the great theologian, scientist, philosopher, and French Jesuit, Teilhard de Chardin. Written in 1965, his words still speak powerfully, I believe, today. There is now incontrovertible evidence, he writes, that humankind has just entered upon the greatest period of change the world has ever known. The ills from which we are suffering have had their seat in the very foundations of human thought. But today, something is happening to the whole structure of human consciousness. A fresh kind of life is starting. In the face of such upheaval, actually shaken by it, no one can remain indifferent. Swept along by the tide of affairs, what can we do to see clearly and to act decisively? And then one final quote, "The age of nations is past. The task before us now, if we would not perish, is to build the earth." I invite you now to listen in and join, if you would like, in the hymn, "We Are Building a New Way."
We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Every need, we can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, the world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
Our closing words this morning are adapted from an article written by the activist nun, Sister Joan Chittister. She writes, "In this in-between time, remember that our history is steeped in despair turned to hope. Speaking in the midst of the decline of the Roman Empire, the philosopher Boethius taught the world of his time that every age that is dying is simply another age coming to life. New life, in other words, is not death unless we reject it. New life is growth, not decline, unless we refuse it. New life is evolutionary, not revolutionary, unless we make it so." Looking at this from another perspective, a Zen master reminds us that no seed ever sees the flower. We are all meant to begin things that will only come to fullness of fruit after us. So may we do the work needed to move us towards the world we envision and desire, even if it is only in the lifetime of our children, grandchildren, or even great-grandchildren that it becomes a reality.
I will now extinguish the chalice with words by Ralph Waldo Emerson. This is my wish for you. Oops, it just extinguished, sorry. This is my wish for you. Comfort on difficult days. Smiles when sadness intrudes, rainbows to follow the clouds. Laughter to kiss your lips, sunsets to warm your heart, hugs when spirits sag, beauty for your eyes to see, friendships to brighten your being, faith so that you can believe, confidence for when you doubt, courage to know yourself, patience to accept the truth, love to complete your life. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Now for a final hymn. I hope you enjoy this as much as I did do. And I think you should watch it to the very, very end. It's just, take it away.
You're my life, you're my breath, you're a smile, you're my guest, you're the earth, you're the sun, you're
Wait
the
for
grass.
it.
You're my hands, you're a bug, you're my eyes, you're a hug, you're the light in the dark, you're the spark, you are fun. You're my mom, you are water, you're the stars, you're my daughter, you're my friend till the end, you're my dreams, you're my father, you're the ants on the ground, the miracles that surround, I'm feeling it all around, the hemisphere in the clouds. You're my pain, you're my sorrow, you're my hope for tomorrow, you're the strength when I'm hollow, you're the path that I follow, you're the blessings that exist, the small things that are bliss, the gift to realize that everything
All
is
that
a gift.
I am, all that I see, all that I've been, and all that I'll ever be is a blessing. It's so amazing, and I'm grateful for it all, for it all. Grateful for it
You're the
all.
blessings every time I try to count. You're the lessons that I learn every time I turn around. You're the water when I'm burned every time I think I found everything I'm looking for. You're the sign saying stop to take a bow and keep moving forward and start looking towards your heart. It'll open all the doors and only then you'll start to hear the world singing chorus with your mind and heart aligned in purpose. Everything
All
will feel
that I
gorgeous.
am, all that I see, all that I've been, and all that I'll ever be is a blessing. It's so amazing, and
day I sit and pray cause what I have is more than I deserve or could ever imagine. How do I give back to all of this magic and spread the love so everybody can have it? Doesn't matter if I'm rich or poor, if I got a family or if I'm all alone. Bad things happen, I can just complain and moan, but there's a million things that I can be grateful for.
So I lift up my hands now, and I open my heart, and my gratitude goes out to everything near and far. All that I am,
Everything I am and everything I see, everything I hope and everything I dream, everything I feel and everything I be. I look deep down and feel all the blessings. Everything I am and everything I see, everything I hope and everything I dream, everything I feel and everything I be. I'm grateful for it all. It's amazing. Everything I am and everything I see, everything I hope and everything I dream, everything I feel and everything I be. I look deep down and feel all the blessings. Everything I am and everything I see, everything I hope and everything I dream, everything I feel and everything I be. I'm grateful for it all. It's amazing.
No, what are you doing?
You're the blessings that exist, the small things that are bliss, the gift to realize that everything is a gift.
Wait, one more. This is for y'all.
All that I am.